In this video, we're going to cover how to install an axe sheath on a flat fender tub that doesn't already have one. You're going to want to scribe a center line down your tub. We are using the seam in the middle of the tool indents as a reference point. And you're going to come over 15.5 inches, make a line, come down here and mark 15.5 inches, make a line, and then connect that line. It will give you a good straight reference for the location of your axe sheath. The sheath itself is 6 inches across, so if you make a line at the 3-inch mark, that will give us a good reference point for where that is mounted. From the bottom edge of the tub up should be 6 inches, so come over here, check 6 inches, and over here. So it should be parallel to the bottom of the tub, 6 inches up to the bottom edge. The sheath is attached with several spot welds to the tub. Obviously this tub has the sheath on it already, so we're going to use a scrap piece of metal and I'm going to show you how to weld this in place. For this portion of the video, this piece of 18 gauge sheet metal is going to signify the side of a tub. So I'm going to show you how I would weld this axe sheath to my tub. From the factory, I showed you those little spot welds along here, so they would have used an actual spot weld machine that comes from both sides of the tub, pinches it and creates a little weld. Most of us don't have that machine, so I'm going to show you how to do it kind of the cheap way, like most of us garage hacks would do. I may not have a fancy spot weld machine, but I do have a drill and a MIG welder. So our first step is going to be to drill some evenly spaced holes around the perimeter of the axe sheath. So I just took a 1/4-inch drill bit, and there's no secret recipe to this. You can put as many or as few holes in it as you want. I think that is more than enough. I looked at the one on the tub I have, and it has one about every 3/4 of an inch. There's probably 10 spot welds around that. I think that's excessive. This isn't a major structural piece, and the more welding you do, the more chance you have of warping or blowing through. Just be careful. Don't do what I did here. I got too close to the edge, so that's really going to be hard to not blow through. I did a little better on this side. So you want to stay into the material as far as you can without, this starts to come up off the tub in places, and you don't want that. So it's, you have a very slim flange all the way around, but try to stay in as far as you can. That'll help with blowouts. As with any welding project, you need to have a clean surface, so I'm going to grind the paint off of both sides on this flange so that I have a good contact and a clean surface to weld to. Here's my piece, prepped and ready to weld. I clean the paint off of both sides, just at the points where I'm going to be welding, because I want the corrosion protection of the paint itself. You could also spray the entire thing with weld through primer if you would like to do that. Alright, we are ready to weld. So the next step would be to take your tape measure and get it positioned exactly where you want it. Refer to the beginning of the video for those measurements. Once you have it positioned correctly, I would take a clamp. This style clamp works really good for this type of job. You can extend these out, so you could just with this single clamp reach through the, where your fuel tank is on both sides and clamp that piece to the tub like this. So since we're working on a flat workbench and I don't have to worry about that, I'm just going to use something heavy to hold it in place while I get it tacked. This is not a welding video, but I will give you a few tips. Welding sheet metal is definitely challenging, so I would take a test piece of the same thickness and play with that. So you could cut off a piece of this, set it on top of there with the holes drilled in it, and kind of get a feel for what it's like to fill in these holes, because it's a little bit different than laying like a normal bead of weld. Another strategy I use is to take a piece of aluminum or copper or brass and put it on the inside of your tub when you clamp it down, and that will help dissipate the heat and protect from blowing through your tub. I like aluminum because it absorbs a lot of heat, and heat is going to be the enemy. We need to get penetration here without blowing through. my strategy when doing a weld like this is, I obviously have way too much wire sticking out here, I'm just trying to show you, is to start with your heat pretty low. Like I said, test on a scrap piece, and then you want to start your puddle in the middle and work your way out. So as you're starting in the middle, your heat's building up so that by the time you get to this outer edge, you have a good puddle going and it's just gonna kind of melt together. A lot of the times I've seen people try this, they don't get enough heat. They fill that hole, and then when they're done, you can just go pop and it snaps right off. So it's really important that we're heating this piece. The piece underneath is where we want most of the heat to go. We're not gonna have trouble melting this thin little circle, but we will have trouble if this isn't getting hot enough to sort of puddle into that. So start your heat in the middle here. This hole will fill up very quickly, and once that happens, there won't be much more penetration. So have your wire speed very slow and adjust your heat accordingly. There it is, welded to our tub. You can see over here I did a couple test spots before I started, and I found I had to turn up the heat more than I anticipated just to get that penetration. So this was probably my best one. You can see it puddled and laid flat. If it's just building up, it's probably not going into the main piece of metal. The only oopsie I had was right here. I blew out the side a little bit, so I could have built that up with more weld, but I found sometimes you just begin chasing your tail and it'll just keep blowing out. So I gave it a couple good tugs and pries, and I'm pretty confident that I got good penetration. If you flip it over, you can see that's not part of it. That was just on the metal, but you can see that there was quite a bit of heat and it was actually kind of deforming the metal a little bit. So I'm pretty confident I got good penetration. If you throw too much heat into a piece of sheet metal, it will warp, so you don't want to overdo it. That's why you would never want to weld around the whole outside of this. Your tub panel would warp, and this piece wouldn't be right as well. Now all that's left to do is take a flap disc or whatever abrasive you want and smooth this out. Here it is all cleaned up. It's a little hard to see with the light glare, but the welds are basically gone. One thing to remember is this is an old Jeep, probably from World War II. They didn't come out of the factory perfect, so don't worry if you can see the weld a little bit or if you dug in with the grinder. It actually makes it more authentic. And definitely don't get out the Bondo and try to blend this in or anything like that. I mean, it's your Jeep, do what you want, but in my opinion, and to be more accurate, just let them show. Now I'm going to hit this with some primer and see how it looks. Here's the finished product with a little primer on it. So you can see it blends right in and looks almost as flawed as original. So I'm happy with that. What do you think? Here it is next to the original on the tub. So as you can see, it's an exact reproduction, and you know, if you look close at this, like I said, there's a spot weld about every 3/4 of an inch, so seeing a little dent or a little imperfection where the weld is no problem. So that's how you add an axe sheath to your flat fender tub. I'll put a product link in the description for this weld-on sheath, and I'll also put a link to the video where we install the footman loops, brackets, and the Pioneer toolkit. Thanks for watching. Catch you later. If you like this type of video or have requests for other videos, please let me know in the comments. I really appreciate your feedback, and I don't really like to ask for likes and subscribes because I think it's annoying, but it definitely does help. So if you got anything out of any of these videos, I definitely appreciate your follow, and comments are always helpful. It gives me motivation and ideas for future videos. So once again, thank you, and catch you later. Now I have this weird piece of sheet metal in my shop that can hold an axe. I feel like there's probably some use for this.